the sujood is performed. So we mentioned that in terms of what is wajib and sunnah and shuruts, everything remains the same. Everything remains the same. So some people say that there's no difference between the salah of a man and a woman, and in that regard they are correct. But there are also differences which comes and stems from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Number one is with regards to the sujood, that generally for men, the arms will be away from the body and the stomach will be off from the thighs. But for the lady, the arms will be against the body and the stomach will be closer to the thighs, to show that the lady's posture of sujood, she is more, like she makes herself more smaller than the men. Men is more prominent, ladies are more concealed. Then the second is the lowering of the voice. Like for example, in loud salah, in the presence of strange men, the lady's voice is regarded to not be heard, because the lady's voice can be a means of attraction for men. Understand? Can be a means of attraction for men. Titi sedar, sy baca Quran and so on, en dan was almal luister op wat sy sê. And then number three, to indicate a mistake. When the imam, for example, if somebody leads the salah and the imam makes a mistake, under normal circumstances, for us as men, we would say, Subhanallah. In other words, we raise our voice. If there is a lady that is following the imam, for example, the lady stands behind her husband. They are making salah at home, the husband leads, and the husband makes a mistake, then the wife don't say Subhanallah. The lady uses the right hand to tap on top of the left hand. The lady uses the right hand to tap on top of the left hand. So now number four relates to aura. It relates to aura. Now what is aura? Aura basically refers to that part of the body that requires to be covered under different circumstances. Under different circumstances, different parts of a person's body requires to be covered. And other parts of the body, under those circumstances, is allowed to be open. So certain things are allowed to be open and certain things must be covered. Now that is what is referred to as circumstantial. Circumstantial. In other words, aura is not the same under every circumstance. It is not the same under every circumstance. Meaning thereby that in the case of a man, a man has got certain degrees of aura in relation to ladies who are his close relatives and he is not allowed to marry. Then there is a different degree of aura for that man in the presence of other strange ladies. And then there is a different degree of aura for that man in the presence of other men. So how the circumstances changes to where the person finds himself, that is also how the degree of aura also can change. And the same for the ladies. When the lady is in the company of her close relatives, then there is a certain degree of aura, meaning certain degree of the body that must be covered and others that are allowed to be open. Now, even when we speak about that degree of the body that must be covered, it means that that must be covered, so it doesn't mean the others must be open. It just means that when we speak about the aura, we're speaking about the minimum amount that must be covered. Under normal circumstances, out of the quality of modesty and haya, a person should strive to have as much as possible of his body actually covered. Should try to have as much as possible of the body covered. So for example, the general aura of the man is the navel to the knee. The navel, some now there's ikhtilaf, is the navel included in the aura, is it not included in the aura? Is the knees included in the aura, is it not included in the aura? So as a safety precaution, it is said from above the knee above the navel until below the knee. Alright, which means the chest part can be open. Maar wie van ons gaat so heel dag rondloop buite? You understand? So aura is from above the navel till below the knee. But ons loop die heel dag met ons 'n kaal borste. Nie sê nou miskien 'n gebou, is miskien different. But wat gaan gebeur as ek as die imam inkom hier in die masjid op 'n Vrydag vir Jumu'ah in my manga en is net so hier gecover tot oor die naaltjie. En ek kom in of ek kom in met my lungi net van bo die naaltjie tot onder die knie. Of my ihram for example. En ek kom so in en ek wil die salat lied hier voor en ek wil die Juma khutbah hê. Wat gaat vir my gesê raak? Utadullah gaat vir my sê jy gaan trek 'n top aan agter. You understand? But in terms of the fiqh, is my aura gecover. Kan ek so salam maak? Now, one thing is what the fiqh tells us aura is, and the other is what haya tells us. What is modesty? So in terms of the minimum for the purpose of fiqh, because nobody can tell me I can't make salah like that. Because if you go to Makkah al-Mukarramah where people make tawaf, you understand, then the chest part is open. Persons make, and I mean, daar is die Baitullah. In die Baitullah is die man se bors oop, en dan kom ons hier, as jy is nice, jy kan nie so salam maak nie. Waar dink jy waar jy? Sy is nie by jou pa se huisie. En in die Baitullah wat Allah se huis is, daar kan jy dit, hoekom? Because ons recognize, daar is in die tyd van ihram. But similarly, it is also permitted. But just because we say that is the aura, we say that is the minimum amount of the aura that should be covered. But modesty, we say, to cover as much as is possible of the aura, inshallah. So regarding the lady, jami'u badani imra'atin auratun. The entire body of the lady is aura. Alright? Entire body. Then there is an istithna. Istithna. Now, you will find that sometimes when aura is discussed, you must see in which chapter aura is discussed. You must see in which chapter aura is discussed. Now, generally, for our purposes, and when we go to madrasa and when we are learning, we discuss aura under the chapter of satrul aura, covering of the aura for the purpose of salah. Most of us get introduced to the discussion of aura under the chapter of salah. Now, when you read in the books of fiqh and the discussion for aura in the Shafi madhab under salah, and you read it under nikah, then it will give you two different things. Because they are speaking about two different subjects, two different occasions of aura. Because you see here, when they speak about aura, it is that the lady is in a state of ibadah, and in that state of ibadah, it is generally expected that the lady is separated from the men. That the lady is separated from the men. Now, when it speaks to nikah, who's going to come to propose for her? Her family or strange men? Strange men. So, in salah, the understanding is that the lady is separated from strange men. In nikah, it is understood that the lady is being exposed to strange men. So therefore, when they have the discussion of aura in salah and the discussion of aura in nikah, they are speaking from two different perspectives. They are speaking from two different perspectives. So it is important for us because sometimes it can lead to a confusion and then people can think, maar hier was something wrong, man. Hier sê hulle aan so en daar sê hulle so. Now we must understand in which context they are speaking. Because daar praat hulle van salah in die circumstances van salah. So they are speaking about that lady's aura while she is in the state of salah. And when they are speaking about it in the bab of nikah, they are speaking about it with her being introduced and exposed to strange men who are able to come and marry her. So it's important for us to understand that distinction because under different circumstances, for example, here they're going to say the entire body except Because he's speaking about what is the condition in salah. In the chapter of nikah, it just says the entire body. Now there's a big ikhtilaf. The ulama sê, nee, die face, die gesig en die hande is die pad van die aura nie. Because waar sê dit so? In die bab van salah. Maar wat sê dit in die bab van nikah? In die bab van nikah sê dit weer, ha? Entire body. Jami'u badaniha. Dan sê dit jami'u badaniha. So you understand? So when we want to have the discussion of aura for the females, you have to see under which context you are speaking. Are you speaking about her being in the state of salah, where she is separate? Because staan die vrouens tussen die mans in salah, besides die haram, that is a different case. But even in die haram, word die vrouens geseparate for the purpose van salah. It's net in tawaf. But why in tawaf? Because that is a special kind of ibadah. Because the man is in a state of ibadah. He is not considered that at that time, as hy besig daar om die tities dop te hou nie. You understand? Because he's in a state of ibadah. En dan sê jy ons, by die masjid, moet die vrouens separate wees, maar op die ander occasions kan hulle saam wees. In die masjid waar ons kom vir ibadat, sê ons, nee, hy tities agter, tities daarboe, nie saam met die man sê. Maar by allemaal die ander plekke, waar is die vrouens? Waar is hulle by die breire? Waar is hulle by die functions? Waar is hulle by die eat and treats? By allemaal die ander functions, dan is die vrouens tussen die mans. En by die masjid, waar is hulle? Waar ons is in 'n state van ibadah, sê ons hulle moet separate wees, maar waar ons in 'n state van ek soek nou 'n regte woord, ek wil nou nie sê unmindfulness is nie, maar waar ons in 'n state van meer freedom is, dan is ons almal saam. En is daar waar die probleem staat. Is daar waar die probleem staat. Mag Allah vir ons tawfiq gee, my geloofde broers. Right? So here, when they speak about the entire body, remember that we are discussing the aura for the lady when she is in salah, and it is understood that she is separate from ghayr maharim men. So she is not exposed to strange men. When it is her entire body, auratun ma'ada wajha wa kaffayha. Entire body except the face and the hands. Now this is according to Shafi madhab. So, according to the Shafi madhab, the lady's feet is included in her aura. In the case of salah. In the case of salah. The opening of the face and the hands is for the state of salah. Now I ask you, as mans, wat is meer attractive vir 'n man? You do get some men, wat miskien 'n bietjie funny is. But generally, wat is meer attractive vir 'n man? 'n vrou se gesig of haar voete? Haar gesig of haar voete? Haar gesig. Maar buitekant sê ons, haar gesig kan oop wees, maar voete moet toe wees. Ons sê die gesig kan oop wees, maar die elmboog moet toe wees. Nou, hoe weet jy? Die voete moet toe wees, maar die gesig kan oop wees. Wat is, as 'n ander, hoeveel ander mans gaat verbykom en wil kyk, hey, hoe lyk hy titie se voete, ek wonder hoe lyk hy boeta se vrou se voete. You do find men with a fetish for feet. Hy is ook daar, fetish for feet. Soos ek, ja. Allah maaf. Soos ek, alhamdulillah. Daai se kom. Toe ek trou. Die eerste ding wat ek check is die voete, jong. Alhamdulillah, Allah shukr. But hoeveel mans daar buite wil ons vrouens se voete sien? Maar as jy ons moet na voete toe maak. En hoeveel mans wil ons vrouens se gesigte sien? En almal die ander patte van hulle, the allow us daim op te wees. We were traveling once in the path of Allah in a Mastura Jamaat. So it was, I think it was either Dubai or Qatar. So a white lady and a husband came to us. So they said to us, the lady went to my wife and the husband came to me wanting to know why my wife's face is covered. And the very first thing they ask is, the husband asked me, why do I force my wife to cover her face? And the lady asked my wife whether she was forced to cover her face. And I told the man, no, I never forced my wife to cover her face. She covers it by her own self as as a practice based on her understanding and belief of what is pleasing to her Creator. What her Creator expects from her in the presence of strange men. And then my wife said basically the same thing to his wife. She's not forced. And then the lady asked my wife, may I see your face? So my wife went one side and my wife lifted her veil and the lady saw my wife, and then the lady said to my wife, but you are such a pretty lady. Why do you want to cover your face? So my wife said to her, because I'm a pretty lady. That's why I cover my face. And then the man asked me, why, if you have a pretty wife, why do you ever cover her face? So I said to him, you see, let me explain something to you. My wife is private property. Your wife, you have made public property. My wife is my private property. For me to see, for me to enjoy. But you yourself, as her husband, you have made your wife public property. Because you understand that because she is your wife and she is pretty, etc., en sy is miskien nog kwai gebou ook, so sy kan maar daai laat sien vir almal. So I asked him, in this hall that we are sitting here, waiting for the aeroplane, how many men are here? How many of those men have seen my wife? And how many of those men have seen your wife? How many of that men, in their minds, could further undress your wife because she is already in part undressed herself? Hoeveel ander mans kan nie jou vrou vere uittrekkie because sy het al klaar vir haar geallow om myself partly uit te trek en te wys vir ander mans. So hoe baie imagination kos dit vir die man om verder te gaan met haar? En hoe weet jy, hoeveel van die mans wat hier sit, het die in hulle minds klaar met jou vrou geslaap? Because dis was jou vrou unexposed. Dis is die reality van wat ons vrouens unexposed. Ons dink ons loop daar in die mall met ons vrouens. Sê weet jy wat gaan deur die mind van die ander mans van hulle jou vrou sien nie? You don't know. That is why the Sharia has placed an obligation on us to protect our wives. And part of that protection is to cover them. To cover them. So, coming back, except for the face and the hands. كما مر بيانه لقوله تعالى ولا يبدين زينتهن إلا ما ظهر منها. And this ayah essentially speaks to the ladies when they are in the precincts of the masjid. وَالْمَشْهُورُ عِنْدَ الْجُمْهُورِ. And the most well-known opinion with the majority of the scholars is أَنَّ الْمُرَادِ بِالزِّينَةِ مَوَادِعُهَا وَظَاهِرُ مِنْهَا هُوَ الْوَجْهُ وَكَفَّانِ. And that according to the majority of the scholars, what is understood here by her adornment. Imagine the Quran speaks about the adornment of the woman. She should not expose her adornment except that which is apparent. And this actually speaks about ladies when they are in the precinct of the masjid. And that refers to the wajh wal kaffan, the face and the two hands. روي أبو داود وغيره أن أم سلمة رضي الله عنها أنها سألت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أتصلي المرأة في درع وخمار وليس عليها إزار؟ قال إذا كان الدرع سابغا يخطي ظهور قدميها. So Salama was one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. She asked the Prophet ﷺ, can a lady perform salah in a thobe and a scarf without having to wear a pants underneath? Without having to wear a pants underneath. So Nabi Sallam said, she can do that only if her dress goes down so much that it covers her feet. The wahir qadamayha means the top part of the feet. So if to indicate that the feet is required to be covered, to remain covered in the state of salah. In the state of salah. والواضح أنه إذا غطى ظهور قدميها حال قيام والركوع. And what is understood by this is that the feet should remain covered while she's standing in salah as well as when she makes ruku. Now the problem that we have is if the dress is just on top of the feet, it might cover, like you see my kurta. See where my kurta is, where I stand. But what happens with my kurta when I make ruku? It comes up. So the lady's dress must be so long that when she goes into ruku, the feet must remain covered. And if the feet becomes uncovered, then it means that her aura has become exposed. And that can be one of the things that nullifies the salah. So therefore, it is encouraged, according to the teaching of the Shafi'i madhab, that the ladies' feet should be covered, and we therefore encourage them to rather wear socks. To rather wear socks. To ensure that the feet is covered. And when she makes sujood, then the dress will again cover the feet. In other words, the feet does not become open at any time. Now, how long must the dress be in order for it to not open the feet? Not in qiyam, not in ruku, and also not in sujood. What it says here that when she goes into sujood, if you see where my kurta is now, the lady's kurta must be so long that the kurta must go over the feet. This is the zahir, the top of the foot. This is the batin, the bottom of the foot. So the kurta of the lady, when she makes sujood, must go over the bottom of the foot, so that the bottom of the foot does also not become exposed during the state of sujood. During the state of sujood. So during qiyam, the top part of the foot should not be exposed. During ruku, the top part of the foot must not be exposed. And during sujood, because the top part must not be bent and it will be covered by the dress. But the bottom part must also become covered by the dress. Must also become covered by the dress. لِإِنْدِمَامِ بَعْدِهَا إِلَى بَعْدٍ. And that is because the ladies must now close together, so it must be such that the dress is able to also cover the bottom part of the foot. أَمَّا الرَّجُلُ فَأَوْرَتُهُ مَا بَيْنَ سُرَّةِ وَرُكْبَتِهِ. And as for the man, we know his aura is between the navel and the knee. فَلَوْ صَلَّى مُسْتَوْرًا مِنْ جِسْمِهِ مَا بَيْنَ سُرَّةِ وَرُكْبَتِهِ فَقَدْ صَحَّتْ صَلَاتُهُ. And if he makes salah, whilst only that area is covered, if he makes salah whilst only that area from the knee to the navel is covered, صَحَّتْ صَلَاتُهُ. His salah is correct. Whereas for the lady, everything must remain covered, including the face, including the feet, except for the face and the hands that can be opened. And this is for the purpose of her salah. Then number 5. So die boetas verstaan die discussion van die aura, ne? Any questions? Okay. لا يسن الأذان المرأة ويسن لها الإقامة. So the lady no adhan, but iqamah. Meaning that even if there is a group only of ladies, now in front of men, a lady does not make adhan and a lady also does not make iqamah, unless there is no men that knows the iqamah. Unless there's no men, like we had with the imamat. Remember previously we said the lady cannot be an imam, except if there is no men, and when it is, for example, her family, her maharim men, then she can be the imam, but she leads from the back. Now, when it comes to the adhan and the iqamah, a lady is not allowed to call the adhan. Why? Because the adhan is intended to call outside people and to make outside people aware of the time of salah, or that the establishment and the taking of place of salah. But if there's only ladies, so the ladies don't make adhan. But when they're going to start with the salah, they just have to confirm that the time of salah is in. And then they can make their sunnah salah. And then once the farad salah is going to start, they can make jamaat salah. Remember, one lady standing slightly in front of the saf, the others, standing by her heel. Then they only make iqamah. And then only loud enough for them to hear. Not loud. Only if there's nobody that knows the iqamah and there's men from her family, not strange men, from her family, then she can make the iqamah, like how we discussed in the case of the imamat. Right? So it is not sunnah for ladies to make, it is not the practice for ladies to make adhan, but it is sunnah for them to make iqamah when they are going to make salah. فَلَوْ أُذِنَتْ بِصَوْتٍ مُنْخَفَّضَةٍ لَمْ يُكْرَهْ. If she does make, if for example there's only ladies and one of them makes adhan with an extremely low, soft voice, then it is not considered makruh. It is not considered makruh. وَأَعْتَبَرَ لَهَا ذَلِكَ مِنْ ذِكْرِ الَّذِي يُثَابُ عَلَيْهِ. And that will then for her be considered to be a form of dhikr for which she will be rewarded. But remember, that is not in the presence of men. In the presence of ladies, if one lady makes adhan very softly, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, just for the sake of indicating that the time for salah is started and that the ladies must get ready for salah, in a very soft, slow voice, and low voice rather, then such a lady, she will get reward for that, and it will not be considered makruh. Amma in rufi'at sawtuha bihi kuriha. However, it is considered makruh for her to make adhan even in the presence of ladies with a loud voice. It is makruh for her in the presence of ladies. For in khifat fitnatu hurrima. And if they fear any fitna, if it is feared that there's any fitna, in other words, the ladies suspect that there's probably some other men in the vicinity, and if they do make any form of adhan, then some other man might be hearing it, so it can become a source of fitna, hurrimat, then it is haram for them to make adhan. That is, now imagine, becomes haram so that strange men should not hear her, and we show her face also. We not only show the face, we allow our wives to have conversations with strange men. We allow our wives, ons is 'n vriende. Ons is amper soos broers. Nabi Sallam sê regarding jou skoonbroer, jou eie broer is mos jou vrou se, so skoonbroer is skoon. So Nabi sê alhamul maut. Ja, die skoonbroer is jou dood. In other words, wanneer dit kom by jou eie vrou, is jou eie broer jou dood. Jou eie broer, Nabi Sallam praat van jou eie broer, is so dangerous vir jou vrou. Ons expose ons vrouens aan all and sundry. Ons neighbors, ons vriende, ons mense by die werk, almal ken ons vrouens. Ons weet nie met wie van ons vrouens nog chat op die phone ook nie. Bi khilaf ar-rajul faqad علمت أن الأذان سنة له عند القيام إلى كل مكتوبة. As for the men, we know it is sunnah to make adhan for every one of the fard salahs. So these are the 5 things in which there is a difference between the salah of the men and the women. Number 1 is the sujood and how the posture is for the sujood. Number 2, the lady of the lowering of the voice, even in loud salah, in the presence of strange men. They read softly. I mean, can we imagine that so much precaution the Sharia places, even with regards to the voices of the ladies? What about the figures? What about the hair? What about the face? All the other things we expose about our wives. What about that? Here we're speaking about the voice. SubhanAllah. Can I just finish this? But can I just finish these 3? Then I just want to do the recap quickly, then you can ask. No? To indicate a mistake in the salah, she taps, she does not say subhanallah. With regard to the aura, in difference to the men, the entire body except for the face and the hands. And if she's not wearing socks, then the dress or the pants that she wears must be such that it covers the feet under all conditions. In qiyam, in ruku and in sujood. And then for the ladies, there's no adhan. In other words, the lady does not make adhan, but a lady in the presence of ladies can make the iqama. Yeah. Yeah. You see, that is why when it says that that area is covered, it means that that area remains covered for the duration of the salah. That area, so it says that the area is, that you remember it says here, between the navel and the knee, which means from here till here, which is why we are required to cover from above the navel until below the knee. But you still run the risk, depending on the nature of the clothing that you are wearing, in ruku and sujood, and because now when you go and sit in die broekie kan optrek tot hier met boura, dan is die stuk open, and that is part of your aura, which means during the salah, and the back also when you make the ruku. So that's why I'm saying, this is regarded to be the bare minimum. Now, for example, the person doesn't have any other clothing. Now this refers to the person that does not have any other clothing. And that is all that he's got. Then under those circumstances, because it is all that he's got, his salah will be correct. But that person, not net so aantrek because it's warm. You understand? Hy kan homself cover. If his aura becomes, because he does have sufficient clothing that can cover his aura. If he does not do so and his aura becomes exposed, because under normal circumstances, if the aura becomes exposed, you are required to immediately cover it and close it. You are required to immediately cover it and close it. If you leave it open, prolonged during the salah, then it can be considered that the salah has become nullified. It can break the salah. So may Allah give us tawfiq. So therefore, everything that is permissible is not necessarily encouraged for us to do. That is why what is permissible goes into 2 categories. One is jaiz and matlub, and the other is jaiz and ghair matlub. One is permissible and desirable for us to do, and the other is permissible and undesirable to do. So to have only from the navel to the knee covered is permissible, but it is not desirable. Why? Because of the implications that it can have for the person whilst he is making salah. And taqwa. Fatwa and taqwa, yes. So the taqwa will cause you to cover your body, and the fatwa is that if you can't and you don't have the means to, then you are allowed to make salah. In fact, the taqwa is such that if a person doesn't have any clothing at all, then he must make salah in seclusion when nobody sees him. Hy kan kaluk salama, maar hy moet salama. Hy kan kaluk salama, as hy nou regtig, hy het genuine in die klere nie. You understand? So may Allah give us tawfiq. Jazakumullah. So, I think we're going to conclude with these lessons here, for this year, inshallah, with the fiqh. One of the things, one of the subjects I actually wanted to, because we felt comfortable to speak now for the time that I'm here. We did Hajj, we did Umrah, we did Ramadan, we did Salah. This was just some recap on some topics in Salah. One of the things that I don't know if the brothers have any particular subject that they would like to do. But one of the subjects I thought we might do is just a basic overview, like an introduction to usulul fiqh. Usulul fiqh. Fiqh is the rule. Usulul fiqh is how the fuqaha extract the rules from the sources, from the Quran, the Hadith, and then the Qiyas, and you get ijma,